I'm an avid researcher of great avatars. When I speak of avatars, I'm not talking about the word as we know it in digital marketing, where we're targeting an audience. I'm talking about the real definition of avatars, which is a highly evolved soul. And some of them include, of course, Jesus Christ, Nikola Tesla, certainly Einstein, Mahatma Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and there are others, but my three favorite, I would say, are definitely Jesus and Steve Jobs and Nikola Tesla. I love Nikola Tesla. You know, he was a very unique individual. The reason I love him is because he was so far ahead of his time, as most avatars are. When you think about it, anyone that comes forth with visionary ideas is not typically accepted in mainstream society, especially not by those who stand to lose from their ideas. Let me give you an example about Nikola Tesla. Do you realize that today we are just now beginning to discover some of the technologies that he had already come up with 100 years ago. Nikola Tesla was born in current-day Croatia, I think in the 1856 or something. And he came to America at the age of 28 with a physics background. What's interesting about his birth is as he was being born, there was a huge lightning storm happening, and the midwife was a little scared and said to the mom that, you know, this is a bad omen. And the mother said, quite the opposite, my dear. He is going to be a child of light. And do you know that Nikola spent his entire life exploring electricity and light? And what happened is when he came to America, he got a job working for Edison. And his ideas were so far more advanced than anything that Edison had come up with thus far. To give you an example, Edison was a proponent of AC current. Sorry, the other way around, direct current. And Tesla came up with the idea of alternating current. The difference being that alternating current is much more powerful, can go a lot further, whereas direct current, after a certain distance, kind of dies off in power. And, you know, people like Edison, who had a lot of money and were very influential, were not too happy that this young kid was coming up with far better ideas than they came up with. Anyhow, so Nikola Tesla decided, I can't remember if he quit or got fired by Edison. The point being is he got funding from JP Morgan to work on some of his other ideas, and mainly the idea of harnessing electricity from the earth and the atmosphere. And he kind of lied about the purpose for the funding and said that he was going to use it, that he was going to use it to build a radar tower, but instead he was building a tower to harness power from the atmosphere. And he got shut down when eventually JP Morgan found out what he was doing. But this tower basically was taking electricity, and the idea was that this tower could emit electricity and talk to other towers, very much like cell towers today. You know how we have cell towers that kind of talk to one another? It's exactly what Nikola Tesla did. And guess what? You know, the backers, the funders, like Mr. JP Morgan, decided, we don't want society to have free electricity. Imagine. They saw money in it, and so basically shut down Tesla, which is really unfortunate. But what I see is that anytime you have a visionary like that, no different than Jesus Christ, you know, he came up with he came to earth with very advanced ideas, thoughts that would progress society, and the local people, you know, the society at the time were not ready to accept their thoughts and their new way of thinking. Why? Because it meant disrupting the status quo. And whenever people in power are threatened or challenged, they don't like it, and they conveniently get rid of these people. I mean, this happens throughout history. Look at, governments, toppled governments, and certainly throughout Africa, Pinochet in Chile, and I could name so many. Anyway, I kind of get excited about talking about avatars because they are so far ahead of their time. And Nikola Tesla invented so many things. By the time he died, and I believe it was in the 1940 something, mid 1940s, he died penniless because the people that were funding him, the people that had employed him, none of these bosses of his wanted his ideas to come out because they realized he was so far ahead of anything that they had come up with thus far. So Tesla died penniless in a hotel room at the New Yorker. I believe New Yorker's on. I just passed it the other day. It was kind of fun. I looked up at the building. I thought, oh, cool. This is where Nikola Tesla, lived the last few years of his life. He on the 33rd floor of the New Yorker, where basically he shut himself in for the last few years of his life, just writing down all kinds of inventions, which we still use today. But really what's interesting is he died in his room, and by the time his family members came to claim all his belongings, guess what? They had all disappeared. They mysteriously went missing. And the theory is that the government or whoever, parties that may, interested parties, wanted to make sure that his inventions didn't get out because they knew that they could capitalize on all his the things that he had put down, all the plans and notes that he had. One of the things that Nikola did share with his contemporaries is that how he would get his ideas was very interesting. He would get like this bolt of lightning in his mind, and this just his mind would light up, and the next thing you know, he could envision these gadgets and machines in his mind, where he would see them in 3D and see how they were structured and put together, and that's when he would sit down and write all his ideas. So just a fascinating individual. I love him, and of course today we have Tesla cars. I believe Mr. Musk decided on the name Tesla over using the name Faraday, who was also a scientist and inventor and whatnot. So anyhow, if if you're a nerd like me, and I am, I love researching avatars and take a look at his history. There are all kinds of books, of course, but just go on YouTube or even the History Channel, and you'll learn so much more about Nikola Tesla, one of my favorites.